what keeps you going for this length of time with that much curiosity, eagerness, enthusiasm?
You're talking about Abraham or Esther?
About Esther.
Well, for Esther, there is nothing more satisfying than these moments where she knows for sure that she's tuned herself to the frequency of Abraham. And then Abraham is able to chew with you on the things that are important to you. It's that seamless feeling of energy flowing with no resistance. There is just not a more delicious experience to be had. The thing that makes this interesting is that the step 1, step 2, step 3 part of the process of creation is all happening all at once here, because you all are bringing the step 1 to it, because Esther's vibration is out of that in that regard. It's like she is awakened and is in that resistance-free zone. She makes sure that for the most part that's where she is when she shows up here. That's what she means to do and usually accomplishes in a very good fashion. So you bring the step 1 to the equation. You're asking the things that you're living, the things that are in your vortex. That's what you are bringing primarily to the equation. Abraham brings step 2. In other words, we know what you want. We know where it is. We know what the path between where you are and where you want to be is, you see. And so Esther is the step 3, the allowing part of the equation. In other words, she's practiced the vibration that keeps her conditions out of the experience that allows this whole thing to take place. This is a demonstration of what you all are about all day, every day, you see. So Esther, as she is moving through her life experience, is asking. Life is causing her to ask constantly, and therefore expanding. And, of course, Source answers the expansion immediately, so then Esther's work is always to come into alignment with what she's asking for. And so, for Esther, the reason that this matters to her is because she is experiencing so many that intoxicated feeling of alignment that she wishes it for everyone. And she wishes it consistently for herself, too, you see. It's that you can't go back sort of feeling, that once you experience clarity, confusion will never again do. And once you experience unconditional love, then conditional love never again will do. Once you are consistently in a vibration of alignment, misalignment just will not do. And so it's what it really is, and it's true for all of you, there is a trajectory that you translate into the word path. And it's just as simple as this. When you figure out somehow, some way, to release enough resistance, to allow yourself enough realization to find your path, when you find that path that keeps unfolding, that path that keeps calling, and you stand in the absence of should I, shouldn't I, but just the feeling of the path. That's what calls Esther. It's that feeling of the path. She couldn't find those words as clearly a relatively short period of time before. But since what's happening for Esther, and for many of you as well, this sequence of conversation has put her in a place of clarity and joy beyond anything that she had ever lived before, or beyond anything that she even anticipated living before. In other words, you can't really know it until you're living it. But it was this sequence of understanding. She got the concept of law of attraction, you all do, pretty easily. When we added the word momentum to that, it moved it into another place of understanding. It was quite easy to understand that momentum is about law of attraction, just adding energy to something. She already had come to understand from years before through our conversations about the emotional guidance system and how what negative emotion means and what positive emotion means. So the idea of emotion was already well integrated within her. But when we began talking about law of attraction and momentum and the trajectory that that accomplishes, a new thing sort of clicked into place for Esther with the understanding of trajectory. And then when we began dovetailing the intentions that you hold from non-physical, she began to understand that there's always been a trajectory for everyone. There is a trajectory that you could even call a path. There's this path of intention that you were born with that you've been adding to as you've been sifting through variety every day of your life experience. So you are dovetailing these trajectories with this dominant path. Are you sort of getting the sense of this? And anytime you find something and it blends with that dominant path, you feel pure positive energy. If you find something and you feel uncomfortable about it, it means it's not blending with your path. In other words, suddenly guidance started feeling entirely different to Esther. And then it became easier for her to let go of the conditions that she thought she needed to sort and manage and manipulate and control. It became easier for her to let go of those conditions because she then understood that she had been sifting through those and had come to conclusions as a result of those that she had put into her vortex. In other words, she understood that there was no possibility that she was a mere puppet on a string. She understood that she was a powerful creator who had come forth into this physical experience on a path or a trajectory that when she finds herself in vibrational alignment with it, she feels glorious. And any deviation from it, no matter how great or how small, is just not good enough. So then she began coining words, not necessarily when we were flowing through her. She began observing of herself and saying about herself, and we've repeated it because we find it humorous and accurate. She began saying, I'm finding myself to be a sort of vibrational snob because I am less and less willing to regurgitate those old beliefs that I've picked up along my physical trail that no longer allow me to be on my path. Her path has become the most important thing. So it's really interesting that you say, what is it that inspires or motivates Esther or makes Esther want to continue this? And we say, how could it be any other way for any of you? You have this path that is unfolding, that you are creating and unfolding. In other words, you're putting it out there and then you're finding it. And you're putting it out there and then you're finding it. It is so compelling. When the path feels to you like it is just appearing beneath your feet, when that angst and that controversy and that confusion and that I don't know what way to go is gone from your experience because you've learned how to just take a simple handful of ideas and make them work for you. So what are those? Law of attraction abounds and it will cause momentum. And when you think a thought, momentum will ensue. And when you think a thought, the source within you is thinking a thought about the same thought that you're thinking. And when source is thinking about the same thought you're thinking, and you are in vibrational alignment with that, then you're on your path and you feel wonderful. And the energy that creates worlds is flowing through you. And what you're doing here and now is meaningful. It's magical. It's unfathomable to those who haven't learned to tap into it. In other words, your ability to focus and accomplish is just off the charts. Everything that everybody wants is about this. Whether it's a material object or a pile of money or a relationship or a place or a circumstance or an event, everything that everyone wants is because you believe you would feel better in the having of it. You believe that in the finding of that you will then be on your path. So then Esther began to understand that it isn't about looking around out there for the path and then figuring out how to get her way to it. It's about creating an atmosphere that allows the path to be inspired through her, you see. To know when you're on your path. To know it unequivocally, to know it undeniably, to know it with certainty. Because, ask yourself the question, which feels better, clarity or confusion? Which feels better, certainty or uncertainty? Which feels better, loving yourself or not? Which feels better, feeling your value or not? Which feels better, knowing who you are or not? In other words, so Esther's just been playing our silly games long enough.
Yep.
Every process that was ever devised was first offered to Jerry and Esther, or the two of them. And every process, she played with it until she received the vibrational benefit of the process, you see. Until she is not at the end of her work here. She's not at the end of her discovery. None of you ever will be. In other words, you could be in a physical life experience and you could conceivably find enough alignment here in this physical life experience that you could continue to find new things about this physical life experience that inspire you, that you could remain in your bodies long after most people are not remaining in their physical bodies. In other words, if this time-space reality has the wherewithal to inspire within you desire, then this time-space reality has the wherewithal to give it to you, provided you are on the vibrational wavelength that allows it rather than disallows it, you see. No exceptions. And so we are appreciating your awareness of the eagerness that Esther feels for her work. And now we will speak about our eagerness about this work. Because, when there are more and more of you who are consciously recognizing our intertwining with you in the day-to-day things that you are living. In other words, those thrills that you feel are the thrills that we are feeling, you see. We are so all in this together. We are so all in this together.
So in essence, Abraham, if I understand what you just said is, I'm trying to understand why aren't there more people that are making the impact like Esther is? And I guess there are.
Because most people there are more and more, but
Yes.
most people are twirled up in the conditions that they are trying to sort out. So they have themselves in a holding pattern of confusion, trying to decide the rightness and the wrongness. Is gay marriage appropriate or is it not? And if it's appropriate, should they be allowed to marry? What? Should the borders be open? Or should the borders be bound? And if the borders are open, would people from other places come and deprive the people within the borders of things that they want? What? In other words, as you are evaluating conditions, so much of the world is evaluating conditions that have been created from wobbles, and then trying to fix conditions that have been created from wobbles, only causing more wobbles. Because law of attraction says that what you got going on, you got going on. In other words, you just can't get there from there, you see. And so, more and more are being born remembering that. More and more who are resistant are making their transition and then remembering it. And more who are hanging around are finding vibrational alignment with who you really are, which is the whole point. Because nothing's going wrong no matter what. In other words, it doesn't matter how resistant you are. When you reemerge into non-physical, you won't be resistant anymore. And when you're born back into a physical body, for a while you won't be resistant anymore either. In other words, it doesn't matter. Nothing's going wrong. Beingness won't cease to be. Creating won't cease to be. Everything will keep moving along. Everything is going just fine. There's just one reason that we want to play with you, and that's because we think you should be having a good time now. We don't think you should have to croak to release resistance. We don't think you should have to do the impossible, which is sort out all the conditions and define which ones are right and which ones are wrong. We think enough bombs have been dropped in an effort to control others who think differently than you do. You have a government that is all tangled up with each other to the point that no one is thinking a clear thought. Their only thought is, your thought can't be right. Your thought can't be right. No, your thought's not right. No, your thought's not right. No, your thought's not right. So nobody's thinking any thoughts except that the other thought isn't right. No one's tapped in to anything that can give them the clear thought, and no one, that's way too strong of word. Because, of course, there are politicians. Of course, there are people in religions. Of course, there are people of the world who are in alignment with who they are. But wouldn't it be nice if you could find a way of discovering your alignment which would allow you joyous life experience as conditions are? Wouldn't it be nice if you could find joy without needing to change the conditions, and then the conditions would have to change? But But feel the trap in that, because right away you get twirled up in that. That made it sound like, okay, so I'll be unconditional, and then I'll align, and then the condition will change. And we say, that's not what we said. What we said is, the condition is uncontrollable. You align and feel joyful. And in your joy, your realization of the condition is different. Yeah, the condition's going to change all over the place. But you can't need the condition to change in order to... In other words, we don't want to promise you conditional change by accomplishing alignment. That's working against our own message. If you'll do what we say, you'll find unconditional love, and then you'll be able to fix the world. That is not what we're saying. The world does not need to be fixed, but your realization of it could be greatly improved. Could be greatly improved, you see. Wouldn't you just like it so much if your knee-jerk response was to see the value, not the flaw? Wouldn't you just love to feel the love, not the hate? Wouldn't you just love to see the path, not the blocked wall? Wouldn't you? Isn't that the way you want to live? And it's not because you need to live that way in order to get stuff done. It's that you want to live that way. You want an open path. Anything that's not an open path doesn't feel good. But don't ask somebody else to open the path. You got to open the path. And you do it vibrationally, you see. So that's why. That's why.
Thank you very much.